Well, welcome to another year of Educational Technology Advisory Committee Town Hall meetings. I know almost everybody in the room, but for those of you who I haven't met before or who haven't met me, I'm Joe Moreau. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Technology for our district, and I'm joined by my colleague Sharon Luchu, who is our Director of Networking and Desktop Support for the district, to talk about our upcoming telephone system replacement, which is kind of a big deal and will impact virtually everybody who works for the district. And we did a town hall meeting like this last fall to kind of let people know this was coming. So this, if you sat through that last fall, probably not a whole lot of tremendously new information, but we have some very important updates, and things will start happening very quickly in about 6 weeks or so, once the RFP closes. So with that, let's dig in. Just as a plug for future town hall programs, this is the schedule for town hall meetings for this year. It'll be on the ETAC website pretty soon, so you can look those up here. But we've got a whole long list of topics. I think we might have switched one of these, so we'll update it real quick and get that out on the ETAC website. Again, we do typically one of these a month. We do 2 times at Anza and 2 times at Foothill, and as you'll see from our good friend and colleague Marty Kahn, we record these and put them on the district's YouTube channel. So if you didn't catch something, or you have a colleague that wasn't able to make it to one of the live sessions, you can always direct them to the district's YouTube channel to find these out. All the topics we did last year are recorded and on the district YouTube channel, so you can go see what we talked about last year as well. But for the telephone replacement system, so what this entails is the replacement of our existing telephone system. This is about 15 years old, Sharon, give or take. Yeah, so it's kind of reached its end of life. It's also kind of old technology in terms of the kinds of things it can do. So this will not only entail the replacement of that hardware, but also kind of a major upgrade of the kinds of services that we can provide faculty and staff through the phone system. Some of the really important features that will come through as part of this upgrade is unified messaging. We'll talk about that specifically in a few minutes. Really good support for mobility. We have a lot more folks who are using this kind of device as their primary device, and we'll talk in detail about that, and other kinds of things like instant messaging. This is a Measure C funded project. It's been on the Measure C program for since the beginning of the program. And it's now time to do this because we finished some other prerequisite projects that now make replacement of the phone system really more viable than before. So why are we doing this? So as I mentioned a minute ago, our telephone system is beginning to reach end of life. Now, for those of you who are typical telephone users, you probably don't see a lot of trouble with the phone system. It's rarely ever goes down. It's still pretty reliable, but if you were living Sharon's life, or Lisa Hosevar's life, you'd know that there's a lot of scrambling that goes on behind the scenes from time to time to make sure that that system remains reliable and remains that kind of utility function that when you pick up the handset, you hear the dial tone and it just works. The system we have now is beginning to experience failures. We've had to replace voicemail, right? We've had to replace E911 services, so if you call for an emergency, people know where to find you. So little by little, we've had components of it failing. When we bought it some 15 years ago or so, it was really kind of, an older product at the time. So we've gotten about as much life out of it as we're going to get. The other challenge that we have is there's only one maintenance vendor on the planet that supports this system now, and they're kind of expensive, and they're not local. And so keeping it maintained is more of a challenge. We also know that based on kind of modern telecommunication systems, the services that this particular technology that we have can offer us are really kind of antiquated. That people are looking for a lot more from their telephone system than just dial tone and voicemail. They're looking for things like collaboration and desktop conferencing and emergency alert and notification systems and all kinds of other things that our current phone system really can't provide for us. So as I mentioned before, we had some prerequisite projects that we had to do before we could really talk about implementing a new phone system, and the big one was the refresh of our data network. And Sharon and Lisa Hosevar and their crew finished that. When did we finish that? In August. So that was a replacement of all of our network equipment from the core to the closets and buildings and a lot of other components, adding some new security, adding new kinds of intrusion detection systems, things of that sort. And that happened, that took about, about 18 months was the actual implementation after the design. So that's done. And now we have really rock-solid network infrastructure throughout the district. So being able to bring on a new phone system that will inevitably take advantage of a lot of the features of the network is really now pretty doable. And we also hope to achieve a much more cost-effective approach to maintenance, because we're really kind of getting bled dry by the current maintenance vendor. So. A lot of important reasons to do it, both to save some money as well as improve service for faculty and staff. So when will this happen? Well, it's been underway for several months. We did spend quite a bit of time with our steering committee, and I'll show you who's on the steering committee in a minute, really looking at industry best practices. We wanted to make sure that whatever system we were going to choose really reflected not just what's happening today in telecommunications, but what's going to be happening over the next 3 to 5 years, or as far out as we can see. So we wanted to make sure that we utilized resources to understand what was happening not just in the higher ed space, but also in other kinds of industries, particularly here in Silicon Valley, to make sure that we were specifying a system that would really denote best practices in telecommunications. December and January, we'll review those proposals. We may bring vendors on campus for interview or demo or discussion, things of that sort, if we feel that's necessary. And then we'll finish that evaluation and hopefully have a contract ready to go to the Board of Trustees in February at the February board meeting, and as soon as that gets approved by the board, we'll issue a notice to commence work on the contract. So we'll begin starting the actual work of deploying a new phone system in February. Some of the first things that we'll do are really kind of back office stuff, setting up infrastructure, setting up some demo sites, so we'll talk about in a minute. And you won't really probably begin to see things show up in people's desks or offices till maybe the latter part of spring, I would think. Yeah, so. Who's been involved in the planning? So we've had a district-wide steering committee made up of folks from the district, from both campuses, who have been really looking at this pretty intensely over the last couple of months. So if you have any specific questions about how college input was factored into the plan, you could certainly ask me or Sharon, or follow up with any of the folks on the steering committee. But they've really held our feet to the fire to make sure that if we're going to do something as extensive as replacing a phone system, that we make sure that we get everything that everybody wants, or as many things as we can afford going forward. So I wanted to talk just a minute about how one of the things that how we see people using phones differently. You know, we spent a lot of time looking at this as part of the research that we did for the project and through the steering committee and with our consultant. And really, I think what you'll find is that the system that we'll bring to the district in the next several months will really reflect a different kind of use of telephones than than maybe when I started in higher ed, 25 years ago, how we used phones then and how we use them now. What we're finding is that folks are asking for different kinds of features and different kinds of services. As I mentioned before, just dial tone and voicemail is not going to cut it any longer. One of the things that we learned from a lot of the survey data that we got back, as well as some of the focus groups, is that faculty, staff, and administrators are much more mobile than they've ever been. So, when I started my first job in higher education in 1990, the work that people did was very focused on a specific space, whether it was your desk or your classroom or your laboratory or your office or whatever that kind of space was. That was where all your resources were, and that was predominantly where you did what you did, whatever your role is. But more and more, people are doing what they do all over the place. They're doing it at home, they're doing it on vacation, they're doing it traveling to conferences, they're doing it visiting other colleges, they're doing it from their classroom, from their laboratory, from their office, from conference rooms, from all over the place, and they need a telephone system that can really reflect that. So we heard from a lot of people that whatever you're going to do with this phone system, it needs to be as mobile as we are. So I need to be able to use the phone system in a place other than the place that's the space that's designated as my workspace. I may, for example, I may want my district phone. I may want to make district phone calls or college phone calls from wherever I happen to be. And that's not something that a typical traditional phone system has been very good at. We also found, talking with folks, that lots and lots of people do not have landlines in their house anymore, that this is their one and only telephone. How many people in the room today, this is your one and only phone? Okay. Yeah, more and more people, the growth of mobile device over landline devices mobile device growth surpassed landline device growth probably 3 or 4 years ago. So, we know that people are really focusing more and more of their effort and their utility on a handheld device, on a mobile device, and they want to be able to include all of the kinds of services that a phone system offers on that type of device. So that's kind of the direction that we're trying to head in responding to that. We also know that handsets are changing. You may recognize this. There's probably still a few of these around here and there, but handsets are becoming more visual. And so it's not just an audio device. It's coupled with other kinds of visual elements for directories, for emergency notifications, for video-based communications, things of that sort. So, what we've really tried to do is look at specifications for a telephone system that incorporated a lot of different kinds of applications. So standard office use, because we'll still have a lot of that. But we also have division and departmental office use, which is kind of different than an individual office space. We have a lot of open areas where people want telephones to be available for a whole variety of reasons, student use is included. And of course, we've had a lot of folks tell us every single classroom needs to have a telephone in it for lots of reasons, for technical support, for emergencies, for just general convenience. So looking at all of these kinds of things and incorporating those into the standards we've developed has really caused us to look at having a greater variety and diversity of handset options for people to use in a variety of use cases. And we'll talk about one specific kind of phone which most people may not be familiar with, and that is the Softphone. So what the heck is a Softphone? Well, a Softphone is essentially a computer application, an application that sits on your desktop and, come on in, and operates as a telephone. So you can use that in conjunction with a headset or maybe even a desktop camera with a microphone built into it to make telephone calls from your computer. And more people are becoming comfortable with this kind of technology and saying, well, if I had a Softphone, I'd carry my laptop with me everywhere I go. So that means I have my phone with me everywhere I go if I want to use it. And that's, essentially what it boils down to. So again, this is an easy way to provide remote access to the district telephone system and the services that go with that. And it's really easy to utilize with a device that many of you carry with you already and just need some kind of headset, whether it's wired or wireless, to plug into that. What you see on the screen there is not anything that we necessarily would buy, but this is kind of representative of what does a soft phone look like. If I have a phone like this installed on my desktop computer, on my laptop, what does it look like and how do I use it? And you'll see it looks pretty much like a standard handset that you would find in a classroom or in an office, but it's just on your computer screen. So, but it has some other interesting capabilities like the ability to integrate with your email system and your contacts and things of that sort. So it's easy to make phone calls from contact lists or from distribution lists, things of that sort. So. Support for mobility, again, this is something that lots and lots of people have asked us for. Said, you talk about an office phone, I'm never in my office, I'm always somewhere else. And boy, it would really be helpful to me if I could connect to my office phone wherever I might be. So how can you help me make this phone my office phone when I want it to be my office phone? And so that's one of the things that we have built into the specifications for this that people are bidding on, is to help us integrate our enterprise, our district-wide phone system with cellular devices to the extent that people want that. Again, it's not something that you would be forced to use or forced to have, but we want to make sure that if it's something that would be helpful to you, if it's something that would help you use the phone system better, that you have access to it through whatever cellular device you're using, whether it's an iOS device, an Android device, a Windows 8 device, that you can use this as your district phone if you choose to. We think that'll provide a level of convenience for people that they're interested in. A lot of folks would also have said, I'd be happy to use my cell phone to do college or district business, but I don't necessarily want to expose my personal phone number to lots of different people who I wouldn't normally give that out to. This is a way I think that we'll be able to help people use, again, using your mobile phone, using your cell phone as your district phone. So really, as you use it to do district business or college business, you would be exposing your district phone number, which is kind of public knowledge generally. So we really hope to be able to demonstrate to everybody some really nice features that integrate mobile devices that you may already be using to expand the features and functionality of our enterprise phone system. Unified inbox. This is pretty cool. Has anybody used a unified inbox before? Yeah. So if you've used one before. My first experience with a unified inbox was in 2001. I worked at MiraCosta College down in Southern California, and we implemented a new phone system, and we integrated voicemail and email together. And we had gone and done sessions like this and presented to everybody that would give us the time of day to say, we're going to have this new unified inbox, and this is how it's going to work, and your voicemail are going to be right there with your email, and it's going to be really cool, and stay tuned. So the day came, we turned it on, people came back to work on a Monday morning, and all of a sudden their voicemail messages were in their email inbox. And I had a line of people at my office wanting to thrash me, within an inch of my life. You are the biggest idiot on this planet. My email was already so junked up, and now you've put my voicemail in it. What were you thinking? This is the worst idea you've ever had. And I would say to them, well, okay, I understand your confusion and your frustration, but give it a couple of days. Try it out. If you don't like it, come back and tell us, and we can separate your voicemail from your email, and it'll go back to the way it was. And they're like, well, all right, I'll try it. Every single one of those people came back within a month and said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry I came and was so mean to you that day, because I've tried it and I love it. And this is one of the coolest things we've ever done. So if you've ever used a unified inbox before, it really can help you do a lot of things. First of all, you can listen to your voicemail on your computer along with reading your email. You can oftentimes respond to a voicemail with an email and say, so Sharon might call me up and say, Joe, I really need that report for the budget meeting on Tuesday. You gotta send it to me. And instead of me calling her back and saying, sorry, I'll send that over to you right away, I just reply with an email saying, here you go, here's your report. Or if it's a voicemail that you need to save for some particular reason, say you've got a student disciplinary issue or some other kind of sensitive thing happening that you need to preserve that voicemail for some future reference. It's much easier to file those messages now, to keep those in particular folders and arrange them in a way that you can retrieve those messages very easily without having to go jump through 57 hoops to preserve that like many people do in our current voicemail system. So there's a lot of advantages to a unified inbox, but it does really require people to kind of get used to it. And you don't always necessarily want to be playing your voicemail through your speakers and having the whole office hear that. So you kind of have to adjust to how you want to use that. But I've been missing a unified inbox for a long time, so I'll be really happy to go back to this. And for those of you who've tried it before, it really is a nice feature and a very convenient feature, and makes it so much easier, particularly when you're traveling. If you're at a conference or at an accreditation visit or a meeting in Sacramento or anything like this, you can just pull up one inbox, listen to all your messages or read all your messages at one time and not have to go to one place for voice and one place for text, etc. So it's a nice convenience. So that'll be part of what we bring out as part of the phone system deployment. So what do you all need to know? What do our end users need to know about this project? So actually, there's not really much that anybody has to do, but be on the lookout for opportunities. So probably at the beginning of, about maybe midway through winter quarter, you think, we'll probably publish, hopefully we'll publish an implementation schedule that will be on the project website on the ETS projects list. So we'll put that out. We'll let everybody know when that's out there so people can begin to get a feel for when these new services are going to be in place, when phones are going to maybe start showing up in their areas, things of that sort. And so we'll put that implementation schedule out sometime, hopefully in February, but depending on how quickly we get the contractor up to speed. We'll also be putting together demo sessions for both campuses, so you can come and look at the actual devices that we have. By this point in time, we'll have selected a manufacturer. We'll know exactly what options are available in terms of both traditional handsets as well as soft phones, as well as other kinds of headsets that might be both wired and wireless. So we'll set up demo centers for both colleges so people can come and really kick the tires on these things and try them out and how do they feel ergonomically. Hopefully we'll maybe even be able to get some mobile device set up so people can see how these things might work on a mobile device. But we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to see the range of options that are available. What will likely happen, and again, it may happen a little bit differently at both colleges, but will likely happen is that when we get ready to begin to roll these things out, we'll probably roll them out kind of department by department, wouldn't you think? Building by building. And we'll go to each of the department heads and ask them to give us their list of users. Well, we'll give them the list of users and they can tell us what device each one of those users will get. So, we've tried to set up some kind of default choices that we think these kind of users would generally be happier with a soft phone. These kinds of users might be generally happy with a traditional handset. We've tried to develop some general profiles based on some of the survey results that we got back from everybody in the spring. But ultimately, it will be the department heads that will make those choices for all the folks in their area. So if you want to consult with your department head about what device might suit you best or work for you the best, after you have a chance to try them out, you'll be able to provide your department head with that kind of feedback. But ultimately, we'll work with the deans and the directors and the supervisors and managers to say, for each department, what kind of devices are we going to deploy there. And then I don't think there will be a huge need for training. I've done telephone conversions twice now in the last 15 years, and they were pretty straightforward. So I don't know that it's going to be all that different to operate this system, or the voicemail, the unified inbox, the regular phone features. There may be some different things on mobility, but what we'll likely do is make available training videos that people can watch at their leisure. It'll probably be provided by the manufacturer. The ones that we've seen so far are pretty good, pretty short. People can generally figure out how to do that. Based upon the feedback that we get from people, say in the demo sessions or during some of the early implementation, if we have to set up workshops for departments or other kinds of in-person training, we can certainly do that. I don't think it'll be necessary. I think most people will figure it out pretty easily, especially if they watch a couple of short videos. I think most people will be able to grasp it pretty quickly. But if there is a need for more concentrated in-person training, we can certainly arrange for that. And whether we do it, we meaning ETS, whether we do that with our own staff or we do that with staff provided by the contractor or the manufacturer, we'll figure out what would work best. But I don't think it's going to be terribly difficult. So I think for now, mostly what people need to do is keep an eye out for announcements about implementation schedule, about the location and availability of demo sessions so you can try out devices, and then be prepared to have that conversation within your department about which way you all want to go with the kinds of end user devices that we would roll out.